into. We'll have to find him a chair. Come in, Fred. No. Just grab that chair and, wherever you can find room. Oh, I didn't realise there was one back there. How's it going, Ralph? Okay. Welcome to our program today. Some of you are brand new, so I just thought I'd just share with you. I'm actually doing some talks on Back to Eden health education. And over the past years, some of you have heard me many times for many years. And I have always promoted what we call the 8 laws of health. And we remember them by spelling out the word New Start. And I believe these are the fundamental, foundational issues that if you want to have good health, you need to follow these. Nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine, temperance, air, rest, and trust in God. And they are all important. You can't just say, oh, look, I'd like to do some and not the other. But my program, air is, you'll hear about the importance of air today, but if you're not drinking enough water, all the exercises you're doing with your breathing is not going to bring you to better health. So you really have to address all of them, but I'm just going to share with you today on air. So it's called Breathing for Better Health. Now, probably this was in about 2019, I think. I came across a book called The Oxygen Advantage. This is written by Patrick McKeon. He's an Irishman. And I read it and I was very impressed with it. He actually had asthma and a number of chronic diseases, and he was cured of his asthma by following what we call the Buteyko method of breathing. Now, he, as I said, I wrote up his article in the Back to Eden newsletter number 79. So if you want to go back into my website, you can actually get the summary of this book called The Oxygen Advantage there, and if you won't remember, I'm going to tell you later in our talk, I'm going to tell you about some breathing exercises. And if you forget them, you can go back into the newsletter because some of them are there. Not all of them, but some of them are there. It's newsletter number 79. But I also came across this book. This book is by, and say, oh, I like this one better than the other. They are both excellent books. And he actually talks about the new science of a lost art. And that's interesting because he says we've forgotten how to breathe. And I'll share with you what he means by that in a moment. Okay, because he says, and both of these men say that the correct way to breathe is primarily through our nose and not through our mouth. Yes, we are going to use our mouth for breathing at times, obviously, but primarily we've got to learn to keep our mouth shut and do most of our breathing through our nose. And that's especially at night time when we're asleep. But something happens. Do you know how many babies learn to sleeping with their mouths open? And you take that little girl there. Now that's quite normal. But do you know something? I didn't realise it until I went into my books, because what I've found in these books, there's things that I never really knew before, even though I've been teaching these breathing for years. I didn't realise it. Okay, why is that little girl going to cause health problems for herself later on? Her parents wouldn't realise it. I didn't know this when I had children. Even my grandchildren, I didn't know. From people ranging from 200 years ago to thousands of years old, to look at how they breathe, how was their nasal apertures, how was their mouth formed. And he found over and over and over again the same thing. They had large nasal apertures and they all had straight teeth. Now, what about today? And he said, today's skulls are completely different. Something has happened. What has happened? How did people used to breathe? Well, we know that they had less stress, obviously, but they ate no processed foods and they used to chew their foods thoroughly. Now, I've taught for years and years one of the most important fundamental things in health is to learn to chew your food thoroughly. And how many of us just eat our food and gulp, 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 it's down? But do you know, I thought primarily it was for digestion, because it just saved your stomach, because then you broke the food down and you mixed saliva with it. But they are saying, and the information in this book, it's not just that, it's the chewing actually develops all your mouth, gives you the right size mouth, because many of us our mouths are very small. We don't have large enough mouths to hold our teeth. And you look what happens down there in the bottom picture. And the soft diet stunts bone development in our dental arch ago that people would have had such crooked teeth as some people have nowadays. Well, what happens to modern day mouth breathers is this. Those people who eat soft foods, white bread, sweetened fruit juices, canned vegetables, etc., had mouths so underdeveloped they cannot accommodate 32 permanent teeth. And then when the wisdom teeth come through, there's certainly nowhere to accommodate them. And this is something else I didn't realise, that you have a young child, they will start off with a certain facial development. If they become mouth breathers during their formative years, their faces grow in a different way. They get very long faces. They have large forehead, long faces, sleep apnea. They have teeth clenching plus more. And interestingly enough, bones in our faces don't stop growing like the rest of the bones in the body. They expand and remodel into our 70s, to age 70, and likely beyond. Now, I had no idea of that. So we've got to realise that we can, even today, you can change the shape of your mouth by using, I know because James Nestor reported in there, he changed the shape of his mouth by using certain dental, whatever the little gadgets they put in their mouth, and he stretched his mouth wider and he gained. And, thinking back to, I can remember one of my grandchildren, when she was about 3 months old, she snored so loudly, I could not believe it. We could hear her we were quite a few rooms away from her, and she would snore so loudly. And guess what? She's grown up with the undeveloped mouth, having to have all the braces and all that whole rigmarole which I'm talking about. It did happen. I can see that. Okay, so signs you are breathing through your mouth. If you have snoring, sleep apnea, fatigue or never feeling truly rested after sleep, having focus problems, dry mouth, bad breath, sore or hoarse throat, dark circles under your eyes or other signs of chronically poor sleep. So if you wake up parched in the morning, you've got a hoarse, dry throat, signs that you have breathed through your mouth. Now, the biggest obstacle for your health and fitness is rarely identified, and this also amazed me. Overbreathing. Have you ever heard of that before? Overbreathing. And we can breathe 2 to 3 times more air into our lungs than we actually need. And this is causing us health problems. They say it's a little bit similar to, eating too much food can do you harm. breathing too much has a detrimental, which, actually a graph on different studies. This is information based on 24 published studies. And I found this very interesting because this is mapping over from how many litres of air we're taking into our lungs per minute. Now, the normal is about 6. Now, in 1929, people took in 4.9 litres per minute. In 1939, 5.3, 1939, 4.8, 1960, 6.8, 1980, 7.8. Then in 96, it was 12. 97 was 11, and back to 90s, to year 2000, it is back to 12. Remember, 6 is the norm. Now, why are people over-breathing? Why are they taking too much air into their lungs? And remember, the problem is going to cause all their mouth to be deformed. They're not going to have a nice large mouth to accommodate their teeth. Okay, but they also checked and they did some research on people who were chronically sick. And they went back and they checked out how much air, the minute ventilation of chronic diseases. So they checked some people with a heart disease, and they averaged out that they were breathing 14 litres per minute. Pulmonary diseases, 11 litres a minute. Cancer, 12. Diabetes, 12. Epilepsy, 13. Panic disorder, bipolar disorder. Asthma, COPD, your pulmonary disease, 13. Sleep apnea, 15. Liver cirrhosis, 11 to 18. Hypothyroidism, 15. Cystic fibrosis, 15. Chronic fatigue and diabetes, 10. What's causing all these people to breathe so much? Then they checked in obese patients and they said that was the amount of volume that they took in, but the number of breaths per minute per people were breathing were ranging from 15.3 to 20 breaths a minute, compared to normal subjects ranged from 10 to 12 breaths per minute. Now, if I said to you, how many breaths per minute do you breathe? Most people don't even know. But I would say, and I've checked it, pretty much average of the people that I know, about 15. Well, did you know that it's even much, much healthier to get it down lower? Okay. All chronic pain, suffering and diseases are caused by a lack of oxygen at the cell level. Now, how do we yet people are over-breathing and they still don't have oxygen at their cellular level. Something's amiss here. Now, in this book, I found this extremely interesting. James Nestor decided that he and a friend would do an experiment. Their experiment is that they were going to get their noses plugged up with silicone plugs, and then they were going to monitor, and they were going to breathe for the next 10 days just through their mouth. So they couldn't use their nose at all. So they ate, they exercised, they slept as usual, then they compared the results of mouth breathing. So for the first 10 days, they were going to breathe just through their mouths. Then the next 10 days, they were going to monitor, and they were just going to check and just see the difference between breathing through your mouth as opposed to breathing through your nose. They measured blood gases, inflammatory markers, hormone levels, pulmonary function, plus more. They wanted to know, would there be a difference? Because is this normal? How many little children nowadays, how many people have problems with their breathing? Stuffy noses, snoring, sleep apnea, wheezing, asthma, allergies, and more. And so many people I know have sleep apnea. Is this normal? Remember, years ago they wouldn't have had it. Something has changed. Back to his experiment. After one night of having his nasal passages, his nostrils plugged up, or both of them, their snoring increased to 75 minutes. That was one of them. And the other man, his was to 4 hours and 10 minutes. They had a dry tongue and mouth and irritation of the throat just for one night. He had no idea it was going to be so damaging to his body. And he went from snoring a couple of minutes to a night to within 3 days was snoring 2 hours every night. He developed sleep apnea. His stress level was off the charts. His nervous system was a mess. He had a whole home lab. Remember I said he had a whole home lab at his home, so he was measuring all these things. They measured everything today. And he said it was his worst experience ever that he's gone through in his life. He felt awful. He felt fatigued. His snoring, his sleep apnea, and his athletic performance all deteriorated. Once he took the plugs out, his snoring disappeared, his sleep apnea disappeared, his nervous system came back into balance. He completely transformed by just changing the pathway through by which he breathed. Incredible, isn't it? Halfway to his experiment, his blood pressure arose by average of 13 points compared to before the experiment. Heart rate variability plummeted, suggesting his body was in a state of stress. His pulse increased, his body temperature decreased, his mental clarity was very low, and they felt awful, terrible. They said they would never wish it on anyone, breathing through your mouth for 10 days. The worst experience in his life. Now, after 10 days, he said, this was the summary of it. His snoring increased 4,820%. They suffered faster pulse rate. Their blood pressure increased by 13 points. They suffered sleep apnea, and caused their body to lose 40% more water. And you see, that's why people wake up feeling parched and dry. Now, after 10 days, you said that you would think that water loss would have decreased the need to urinate, but it was the opposite. They had to urinate more at night. Then this is what I found absolutely amazing. They found it 6 times harder to balance on one leg. Now you take how many people are getting older and they're saying, oh, I can't balance. They're getting dizzy. Yet they're not understanding that this also can have factors in because how they're sleeping at night time. Their stress levels increased, their sugar cravings increased. Just by breathing through your mouth. They found it hard to concentrate because they said their nose has many functions. You know what you do? It filters, it humidifies, it pressurizes, it conditions. It also affects different hormones. It affects the woman's menstrual cycle. It helps store lower blood pressure. It monitors your heart rate. It stores memories. And this is absolutely amazing. The nose actually has erectile tissue like men's and women's genitals and is covered in that same tissue so that when one area gets stimulated, the nose will become stimulated as well. Can you believe that? Ideal breathing rate. Italian researchers found the ideal breathing rate is 5.5 seconds out, 5.5 seconds in, and taking about 6.5 litres of air. And they said give or take. So I've just thought, well, if it's 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, that's 10 per minute, which divides nicely into 60. So that means that you've got 6 inhalations and exhalations each minute. Now that is ideal, but who of us can get there? It's like changing your breathing pattern. You breathe for 1 minute, then you go along and you forget. Just you go into automatic mode. But they found that the blood to the brain increased and the body entered the state of balance in which all of the organs, all the systems worked in harmony with one another. And people with anxiety, depression, all had significant effects on them just by breathing this way. Okay, they also found out that exercising, they used a stationary bike and they measured their performance level, and they said that they simply by breathing through the nose could cut exertion in half and offer huge gains in endurance. Athletes felt invigorated while mouth breathing and left them exhausted. As a matter of fact, Patrick McKeon, he trains lots of people lots of athletes who are into learning to breathe better so their athletic performance will be increased. Okay, but they found that all athletes, obviously with the exception of swimming, had lower heart rates. They gained more oxygen even though they breathed less. They gained in their performance, endurance and recovery. And they also related the story of there's a man called Emil Zatopek. He was a Czech runner. He was an athlete in the 1952 Olympics, won the 5,000 and 10,000 metres simply by breathing in an amazing way. He would train and he would hold his breath, and he would train and he'd run and he'd do his exercises, did a lot of breath holding. And before this, he was just a reasonably average athlete. But all of a sudden something happened. And he even he won the marathon at that same Olympic Games just by changing, and he hadn't even practiced for the marathon, and he won it. So they knew something was happening. They knew and they found out about this. Now, getting back to the book too, they also did some tests on some monkeys. Some rhesus monkeys, they did the silicone plugs up the monkey's nostril and put them there for 2 years, and they measured their nasal passages and their mouth cavity, their dental arches, the angle of their chins, the length of their faces, gaping mouths changed the shape of their mouth. Okay, and obviously it was for the worse, but after the experiment ended, then their whole faces came back and resumed to their former shape. And it leads to many health problems. We know that incorrect breathing does. And what does it do? Well, it decreases energy levels in the body and our ability to exhale toxins. And so it can lead to health problems such as high blood pressure, insomnia, and some forms of cancer. Now, in 1931, Otto Warburg won a Nobel Prize for determining that only oxygen-starved cells will mutate and become cancerous. Now, why do people, and you remember I said most everybody is over-breathing. We're getting plenty of oxygen into our system. Why are our cells starved of oxygen? An amazing thing too, they also found that ADHD is also linked to breathing quality. Amazingly, I've checked the research, 5% of kids in Australia have ADHD and 10% of kids in America have ADHD. But what is it? And they found that by simply improving the breathing habits of these kids, they can overcome psychological and neurological problems. Teach the kids to breathe correctly and their health improves. You know, I don't know about you, but I didn't know all this. I had no idea. But now this is getting onto a subject which really found incredibly interesting. Nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is produced in our sinus cavity. It's a gas. and it's inside the nasal cavity, and we just produce a small amount of it, and when we breathe through our nose, it goes into our body. It combats harmful bacteria and viruses in our bodies. It regulates blood pressure, lowers cholesterol. It boosts the immune system, helps keep us free from disease, including cancer, and promotes a longer life. It keeps the arteries young and flexible, prevents clogging of the arteries with plaque and clots, dilates smooth muscle layer embedded in the airways that transfer oxygen to and from lungs. So we absolutely need it because it really dilates our blood vessels. But look at the next one. It plays a significant role in blood flow and erection of the penis. Who's telling the young men that? How many? And it's really, really something that is found everywhere. Men are just not aware of this. Who's telling them that this can be a problem if they're breathing through their mouth at night time? Yet we do not get this gas when we mouth breathe. And by the way, too, it also works for women. And in their libido, if they breathe through their mouth, they'll lose their libido too. So it's interesting. It's all linked together. So how do I know if my nitric oxide is low? Well, symptoms include high blood pressure, memory issues, low stamina, and erectile dysfunction. Now let's just go a little bit more. Correct nose breathing automatically activates the diaphragm and takes the air deeper into the lungs, because the greatest concentration of blood is in the lower lobes of the lung. But when you mouth breathe, you're using the upper parts of the lung. But breathing through the nose brings the air down from the top part down into the bottom part. You pick up the nitric oxide and it actually redistributes the blood from the lower lobes of the lung up to the upper. So, correct breathing. And I want you to realise all of the breath exercises that I'm going to talk to. I'm not going to repeat this, but you must realise this is all diaphragmatic breathing. This is breathing using the diaphragm. It's not just breathing through your upper parts and you're breathing in like this. You're breathing in using your stomach muscles to allow the lungs to expand sideways as well. So your breathing, of course, decreases it. And there is something interesting because it's some sort of a paradox, because the harder you breathe, the less oxygen that's delivered to your cells. In order for oxygen to be delivered to the cells, you need carbon dioxide. If you breathe too hard, you offload your carbon dioxide and lose it from the lungs, and you reduce it in the blood through the lungs. So, in the loss of carbon dioxide in the blood causes blood vessels to constrict. Remember, nitric oxide causes them to relax. And the red blood cells hold on to oxygen when there's a reduced pressure of carbon dioxide. So ultimately, it's your breathing which determines the pressure of carbon dioxide in the blood. And you need optimum amount of carbon dioxide to allow the oxygen to be released from the red blood cells to the cells. Okay, so we know that if we have increased carbon dioxide, brain cells are calmed down. In other words, the brain can regulate its own excitability through our breaths. We can't just say that oxygen is good and carbon dioxide is bad. In order to properly really harness oxygen and utilise oxygen, we need carbon dioxide. Because we get plenty of carbon dioxide, plenty of oxygen into our bodies. During rest, we exhale 75% of it. When we're doing exercises, we exhale 25% of it. The body has plenty of oxygen in the blood, But the problem is getting the oxygen from the blood where it's vitally needed right into the cells. So when people over-breathing, they're actually getting plenty of oxygen in, but it's not going into the cells. That's the problem. And I want you to remember that a whole lot of the exercises here, I want you to talk, most of them, breathing in through your nose, breathe out through your nose. Now, the oxygen advantage, Patrick McKeon talks about the Batico method of breathing. And I know some people are familiar with this method of breathing, and he talks about it. He shows and he talks about what we call the Bolt score. This is very important for you to know how much capacity your lungs hold. Did you know that it can even determine how long you're going to live for? Because if you've got a good lung capacity, it also is reflected in longevity. But your Bolt score, your body oxygen level test, determines relative breathing volume during rest and breathlessness. So holding your breath until you feel the first natural desire to breathe determines your Bolt score. Now we're just going to show you and I'll tell you how to do it. It tells you if your breathing is optimal or dysfunctional. It tells you about your carbon dioxide tolerance, your oxygen extraction and utilization efficiency, your energy levels, and it's a way to track your progress. So this is how you do it. You breathe in and out through your nose normally, just in and out through your nose. You're breathing in and then out, and then after you breathe out, you can actually pinch your nose shut and see how long it takes you to get the desire to take a breath. Now, if you do that and you're gasping for breath and you've held your breath too long, it's not a measure for how long you can hold your breath for. This is just when you feel the urgency to take another breath. Okay? So what I'm going to do I'm going to actually give you here a little if I can get it there. No, I want to go back. I don't know how to activate that. I don't think I can activate it on this. I'm having problems with... No, it takes me to the next slide. I'm just... Okay, so the idea is you breathe. I'll show you how you do it. So you breathe out, then in and out, just normally. And then you hold your breath. Okay, how long should you be holding it? Okay, you can improve it. This is something you can learn to improve. This is quite interesting because your below 25 is dysfunctional, and breathing for your breathing and physiology. By the way, how to do that is in that newsletter. I've got that information, how to do your Bolt score, in that newsletter. Okay, 40 or more correlates with high energy levels. So the longer you can do it, the better you can, your lung capacity. And you can improve your Bolt score. You will have calmness, you will have more energy and better brain function. And each time you improve your Bolt score, you will actually even by 5, you find so much more energy. You will realise. Now, I started off, mine was pretty hopeless. I've got to admit that. But it's improved. It's improved quite a long. I can get it probably about 25 before I feel like it. I'm not quite sure if I'm doing it exactly right, but I think I'm feeling that probably around about that. Now, deep breathing for health is a myth. Now, so have you all seen these little gadgets here? These pulse oximeters? You switch it on, you put your finger in there, and it actually determines and it tells you how much oxygen you've got in your body. Now, but and I didn't realise this is sort of new to me as I've learned all of this too. It's not a sign of health as it doesn't get more oxygen to your cells, because nearly everyone, unless you've had some sort of health problem, you'll have probably between 95 to 99. That's your normal. Everybody's got it, but we still can have oxygen starvation at our cellular level. We do not need oxygen for health, but most people are oxygen saturated and have levels between 95 and 99%. But this is healthy breathing. The graph on your left says what you do is you're not breathing in large breaths. You're breathing in, yes, remember it's diaphragmatic, okay? So you're using your abdomen, but you're breathing in quietly, and it's light breathing. It's not heavy breathing. People shouldn't be able to hear you breathing. So it is light breathing, and there's a little pause in between each breath. That's ideal. But yet how many of us are doing it like in and out, in and out, in and out? Okay, that is unhealthy breathing. But what regulates our breathing volume? Now I'm going to say this again because I want you to get it. Carbon dioxide is the primary regulator. Brain receptors monitor carbon dioxide and oxygen in the blood along with the pH levels. When the level of carbon dioxide increases above a certain threshold, the receptors in the brain stimulate breathing to get rid of the excess carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is not just a waste gas, but it is the key to effective oxygen delivery to your cells. Okay, yes, now what does that mean? We retain, now normally when we're breathing in and out, just normal exhalations, we're breathing out, we still retain some carbon dioxide in our body. That's natural. How much do we retain in our body? That's the important thing. Optimal health and breathing relies on retaining the correct amount of carbon dioxide in our bodies. So if we're breathing out and we're having large exhales and getting rid of it, that's what's causing our problems. Red blood cells have hemoglobin which carry oxygen and deliver it from the blood to the cells of your body, which is orchestrated by the acidity or alkalinity of blood. That is all determined by the amount of carbon dioxide. So when carbon dioxide levels are higher, oxygen is dropped off into our cells. So the more carbon dioxide we retain, the more oxygen we got dropping off into our cells. And remember, we need oxygen in our cells. That we've got, all of us, we would have plenty of oxygen in our blood. But that's not where it's needed. It is needed in our cells. So carbon dioxide is what monitors, and that correct balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide in our breathing, that determines whether we're going to have oxygen dropped off into our cells. Now, taking big breaths, and I know I have taught this. I always said, take a big breath. Yes. This is what people used to see. And this is what James Nestor said. This is a lost art. People don't realise it's not about the size of the breath that counts. This actually reduces oxygen delivery to our cells and to our liver and to our hormone-producing glands, to our intestines, to our heart, to our muscles, to our skin, and guess where also? To our brain. We overbreathe, we lose oxygen in our brain. And you look at the right-hand side, that's a graph or a scan of normal breathing on your left, and for somebody who is hyperventilated for 1 minute. And can you see the different amount of oxygen in their brain? It certainly looks different. Normal is left, and see what's happened? They haven't got oxygen in their brain. And I don't know about you, if you're like me, we need every bit of oxygen we can get in our brains. Because guess what? How many of us complain about foggy thinking? Can't think straight. Yeah, are we over-breathing? We're getting too much oxygen into our body. So why do humans over-breathe? Well, they said chronic stress, yes, number one. Modern sedentary lifestyle, modern diet, and that's got to do with the acid load in your food, possibly overheated homes. But I don't know. Is there something else? I would hazard a guess that there has to be. You're right, that's critical. Windows open at night is critical. But there's something else. Why is it that people all over the world are having much less, they're overbreathing compared to hundreds of years ago in those skulls? Remember I said to you that those skulls showed that those people had different breathing habits. Look, you're right, a lot of people would be on medication, you're right. But even so, there is something, but what about those people who are not on any medication? Yes? Quality, I think you're very right. What's happening to the air? We've got all these stuff that's being sprayed in our skies now. I'm sure that that's affecting it. But I also would believe that part of it is also electricity and EMFs. I believe electromagnetic radiation is much, much more involved than we think, but something has happened. I don't know what it is. I really don't know. And I guess possibly, will they ever find out? I don't know. So 4 keys to healthy breathing: light, slow, nasal, and diaphragmatic. Unhealthy breathing, you have 15 to 22 breaths per minute, and you have a 10 to 20 Bolt score. 10 to 12 breaths a minute, you have a 30 to 40 Bolt score. Optimal breathing is 4 to 9 breaths per minute and a 60 Bolt score. Now, I don't believe there's too many people like that, but obviously there are some. Now, how do we become a nose breather? Well, there's another one too, and this is also in Patrick McKeon's book. He talks about being it's a nose unblocker, but this is a very good way to do it, and it's the steps. You can do it, and you can do it walking, pacing, or you can do it even up and down on the same spot. But you inhale and exhale through your nose, just normally. Then after the exhale, you pinch your nose shut and you count how many paces you can hold your breath with a medium to strong air shortage without overdoing it. When you resume your breathing, do so through the nose. Resume nose breathing and calm yourself as fast as possible. If you're not able to recover within 2 to 3 breaths, you've held your breath too long. So this is another one, and this is really a good one to get into, because it can help you. This is like, I find it so much easier to practice exercising when I'm walking, when I'm doing something. I'm just hopeless I can do it for minutes while I'm concentrating, then I'll just go back into my normal day and I'll just forget, and my body just goes into automatic, But wait 1 to 2 minutes and do another breath. You repeat it 6 times. If you repeat that exercise 6 times, it will declog your nose. And you can repeat it 5 to 10 times daily. You can build yourself up to do it. You can get a good Bolt score. Remember, this really helps. But that, by pacing, is really great to do it. Remember, it's in that newsletter if you just forget what I'm telling you here. It's all outlined in there. Now, what about those people saying, oh, I can't breathe through my nose, I've got a clogged up nose? Well, the reason you've got a clogged up nose is because you haven't used it. The more you use the nose, the better it works. And they say the same thing happens. You use it or you lose it. Now, if you snore or you sleep with someone who snores, that is a clear sign you need to address mouth breathing. Now, during deep sleep is very important to repair the human body, and we're all aware of the lymphatic system in our body that actually drains away and gets rid of waste. But we have a system in our brain called the glymphatic system that removes waste in our brain. And that only happens, that glymphatic system only happens during very deep sleep. Now, there's also some exercises to induce sleep. Slow down your breathing to the point that you can get a slight air hunger and maintain that slow breathing for 15 to 20 minutes before you go to sleep. Place one hand on the chest and one hand just above the diaphragm and feel the diaphragm moving. You just feel it like that. The whole objective is to really slow down your breathing to the point that you feel a need for air. And that's the idea. Remember, this is to induce sleep so you start to get drowsy. You know, it's interesting because I've just paid particular attention to my body. When I'm waking up when you wake up in the middle of the night, your breathing is very still and very shallow. And that's obvious, designed that way. God's created it to do it. You know we have a creator that gives us this. He's set this into our body, but we've messed it up somewhere along the line. But remember, you need to slow down your breath by about 30%. Carbon dioxide will build up in the blood. As carbon dioxide builds up, the blood vessels dilate and more oxygen gets released from the blood to the cells. Now, I've said that again because I want you to get it, right? You really need, the only way to get oxygen into our cells is to slow down our breathing. And you experience increased watery saliva in the mouth and you get drowsy, you activate the relaxation response, you improve your blood circulation and you open up your airways by slowing down your breath. Plus, and if you wanted to get sleep at night, use no modern technology. Get every device out of your bedroom. You know, so many people don't even realise that they shouldn't have a digital clock beside their bed head, on their dressing table. That is going to cause problem because it's got radiation. And so many things cause radiation. So switch off all, and having mobile phones, and so many of the young ones, they sleep with mobile phones under their pillows. But get rid of that modern technology. And it maintains a body temperature. The internal nose not only provides around 90% of the respiratory system air conditioning, but requirement also recovers around 33% of exhaled heat and moisture. So if we're breathing through our mouth, we're breathing out more heat than we do if we breathe through the nose, out through the nose. Remember, it helps your workout. Nose breathing helps your workouts. When there is proper oxygen-carbon dioxide exchange, the body will maintain a balanced pH. Our oxygen intake happens mostly during the restricted exhale through the nose. That's interesting. See, remember, the breathing should be in and out through the nose. If carbon dioxide is lost too quickly, as in mouth breathing, oxygen absorption is decreased. So that's helping in your workouts too. And they're finding out a lot of these breath experts are training athletes now to learn to hold their breath, to breathe less, and their performance is much, much better. It helps fight infection when you breathe in and out through your nose, because remember, one of the functions of your nose is to filter out all the viruses and the bacteria. And it mix it with nitric oxide, which has two important functions. It kills deadly bacteria and works as a vasodilator on the airways, your arteries and your capillaries. And your nose is home to more than 50 species of good and bad bacteria and is designed to stop the bad bacteria reaching inside your body. You've all heard that one. Patrick McKeon, talking about, this is the man who's done the oxygen advantage. He said that he was arriving home he was going through, I think it was England, he's from Ireland, but and it was just about 1 or 2 days after all this pandemic exploded on the news, and people didn't know, well, is this really dangerous? He wasn't sure, and he had to go on crowded public transport. So the first thing he knew, if you've got to go on crowded public transport and you don't want to catch anything, breathe through your nose and make your breath shallow. And that's what he did. And he said that that's one thing. Remember that. If you ever are exposed where people are coughing you all around you, keep your mouth shut, breathe through your nose, and don't breathe deeply. Just have nice, consistent... let me say this, don't breathe shallowly. Yes, we're breathing deeply by using our diaphragm, but we're not breathing large breaths. Okay, it also, mouth breathing weakens your lungs, heart and more. It exacerbates asthma, high blood pressure, reduced blood circulation, slows down your brain and reflexes, and even causes spells of dizziness and sometimes unconsciousness. Who's telling the people? I've noticed there's so many of my friends talking about, they're getting dizzy. I can't stand up. I've got a lot of vertigo, or whatever it is. They're just dizzy. Who's telling them that could be linked to how they're breathing? I'm not saying it is, but it's something we need to really understand. And there is a good possibility that it is. I'm amazed, because even with the asthma, I'm amazed because I was talking to a naturopath and she was saying that she knows somebody who had such bad asthma, and they had cortisone couldn't help them anymore. So what they decided to learn the Batico method of breathing, and the asthma is completely gone. And since I've even started doing all this breathing, I have noticed I used to have this dripping nose. It would frustrate me because other than that, my health was pretty good, but I could not work out, why is my nose always dripping? And I've started breathing through my nose at night time, taping up my mouth, and guess what? It's gone. Except for now, because I've just got a little bit of a cold. My husband's got a cold and I've just had a little bit of a cold, but it's still nowhere near as bad as it used to be. So if you are failing your heart, brain and all other organs by denying optimal oxygenation, even though you may have no cardiac diseases, you may develop arrhythmias and other heart ailments. I know somebody who is obviously a mouth breather because they've got asthma, they've got everything. All of a sudden they've developed an arrhythmia and the heart problems, and they've had to have a heart operation. Who's telling them? Can be linked. And it's an invitation to snoring or sleep apnea. Our nasal passages have nerves that regulate breathing. When inhaled air passes through the nose, nasal mucosa carries the stimuli to reflex the nerves that control breathing. When you breathe through your mouth, you bypass nasal mucosa and it predisposes you to loud snoring and irregular breathing. Snoring is a precursor to sleep apnea, and apnea to precursor to low cellular oxygen, the precursor to almost any illness, including heart attacks and deaths in one's sleep. And did you know that the book, I can't find exactly where the reference was, but I can remember them saying that 30% of people who have sleep apnea can be helped by learning to breathe through their nose as opposed to their mouth. I can't imagine how some of people have these machines, these CPAP machines that they have to wear at night time. Now, breathing too much causes reduced blood flow throughout the body, including the brain. Remember that? Talked about getting blood flow to your brain. Remember? It can cause quite a lot of, here it is, says, which can cause a feeling of dizziness or lightheadedness, and diameter of some blood vessels reduced in some individuals by up to 50%. Can you wonder why we're not getting blood to our brain if we're breathing wrongly? And this shows how overbreathing can affect our blood flow. Habitual mouth breathing results in fatigue, poor concentration, reduced productivity, and a bad mood. It causes smooth muscles of the airways to constrict, resulting in wheezing, breathlessness, tight-chested, and cough. Now, this here is some tape, some micropore tape. 8 hours of poor oxygenation leaves you feeling groggy. So use micropore tape or a snoring strap. You can actually buy snoring straps apparently, but if you're going to learn, you think, oh, I think I'll try taping up my mouth. And I thought to myself, well, if I'm teaching this, I've got to do it. So I tried to tape it up. Of course, I've got a husband who's decided he'll come along the bandwagon too, and he tapes up his mouth at night. Okay, and so we learned to do it. Okay, and I find that when I first started, I taped my mouth during the day to make sure that I coped. Because, you know, it sort of feels strange to think, oh, you've got to tape your mouth shut, okay? It's recommended using the tape nightly until you're breathing through your nose all night. Your mouth will have plenty of saliva in the morning and you'll feel refreshed. And I didn't realise how important, I'm going to stress again with little children, by keeping your mouth shut during sleep, by using pillows under the child's mouth. Even a little baby, they can have a pillow under their mouth. Shut their mouth every time you see it open. And you know, it's interesting because in these books here, they talk about in the people cultures of the world that don't have all these health problems with their crowded mouths and have to wear braces on their teeth. Those people, those mothers know the value of shutting their children's mouths during the night and teaching them to learn to breathe through their nose. As I said, I didn't know about this. No one told me. I'm sorry, I was how old am I, you know? All these years. So use your micropore tape over your mouth, wear it for about 15 to 20 minutes a day so you get used to it. Even children can get used to it, but sometimes you've got to work with children on it. But if you can let them practice doing it, because you know, when you put it over your mouth, this is how it goes. I put it over my mouth this way. Now, some people do it that way. Some people do it that way, but I do it this way. How do I do it? Well, I've actually just shown you, just briefly, because when I first started doing it, I found that it was too sticky for my lips, and it actually made my lips feel very dry when I'd pull it off. So what I did, someone suggesting doing pawpaw cream over the lips, which sort of helped, but they felt dry when I pulled them off in the morning. So what I decided to do was, little diagram here, I see that little thing there, that there is like the sticky side up. Now that little piece of tape there is not a special colour. I've just used the colour there to show you. I have stuck a little piece on there with down, the sticky side down, so that's the part that goes over my lips. Now, that's how I've done it. But you don't have to do it that way.
Band-aid, you mean, with a bit where it doesn't stick?
Yeah, well, a Band-Aid, but a Band-Aid is too sticky. It's,
no, but I mean with a bit...
Yeah, that like the Band-Aid is, yeah. Okay, yeah.
I didn't quite understand your little strategy there.
Okay, so that piece is a piece of micropore tape with the sticky side up. There's a little piece in there, I just tear on an extra piece and I actually fold it over and I just put it down so it, with the sticky side down, and so I've got a piece across my mouth that's got no stick on it. No stick. It's like it was said here, you know, like the little centre section of a Band-Aid has got, it's not sticky. Yeah, so that's what I've done. Now, James Nestor, he only uses a tiny little, very small piece, just 1 centimetre wide. This tape that I've used, and that's about 2.5 centimetres wide, but his is about 1 centimetre wide, and he only uses a very small, just straight down his lips like that. So you can do it however you want to do it. As I said, I've seen people with them plastered all the way there, but that to me is just an overkill. You know, you don't need to do it. Okay, so more exercises. Now, I want to share with you some more exercises. He instructs top athletes to train with their mouths shut and breathe through their noses and achieve better results. Obviously, the exception of swimming, but he's got certain breath holds for swimmers. High altitude training is also covered as a number of specific exercises. So he realises that, you remember how a lot of athletes train up in the high altitudes because it does help their performance when they're down lower? Okay, so more exercises. How to improve concentration, calm your breathing, or calm your mind, or for more energy. Okay, so this is how we're going to do it. You exhale normally through your nose. Remember, we exhaled. You pinch your nose with your fingers to hold your breath for 2 to 5 seconds, then let go. You breathe normally through the nose for 10 seconds, and you repeat that. So there's 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, hold, pinch. So that's 5, 5, 5. Or some of them say it is 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out, and hold. That's another good one. And by the way, there are hundreds of different experiments and ways to breathe. You can buy books and you can have so many. And I guess, you know, what do you want? You have a different breathing exercise for what you want. But this is a very good one. For a weight loss program, permanently breathe through the nose during your day and night. And it's just ideal just to remember, keep your mouth shut. Breathe through your nose as often as you can. Your mouth should be only used for talking and eating. That's it.
Sometimes we've got to keep that shut too.
True. Okay. True, that sometimes we do need to keep our mouth shut too. Okay, a summary of the weight loss program is permanently breathe through the nose during day and night, wear paper tape over the mouth, practice breathing light for 10 to 15 minutes 5 times a day. Now, I know that's a lot of minutes, but it's ideal if you can incorporate it with your walking. Be careful what you eat, and you have to be careful what you eat. I'll do another walking one in a minute. Mouth breathing, you have an agitated mind, poor sleep, daytime fatigue, brain fog, lack of focus, poor concentration. Every day is a struggle. Nose breathing, calm mind, deep sleep, falls asleep easier, wakes up feeling fresh, clarity of mind, sharp focus, good concentration, and every day is inspiring. Have you ever wondered why some people just seem to breeze along? Could it be this? I'm not saying it's the only thing. Remember I said to you earlier, it's a combination. It's not just the only thing, but it's a big enough one for us to look at and realise, have we missed something? Remember, functional breathing is light, it is slow, and it is deep, and it is through the nose. Now, there's another example which you can have an exercise is right and left nostril breathing. So you can breathe through your right nostril to speed up your circulation. Your body gets hotter and blood pressure and heart rate increase. The left nostril is connected with the parasympathetic nervous system and lowers blood pressure, cools the body and reduces anxiety. And it's interesting, they said that during the day, your nose just switches predominantly to one nostril more so than the other. This is incredible. And your body just does it. But we can control it by doing... So what you do here, you're breathing in, you plug up one of your nostrils, you breathe in, and you breathe out through the opposite nostril. Out, then in for 4, out for 4, in for 4, out for 4, in for 4, out for 4, in for 4. And you get the right, you get the drift of that one. So that is an excellent one. That helps you, does lots of things for you. You can remember what it is. Okay. The next one, box breathing. Now this is calms and focuses. This is what they train the Navy SEALs when they get into a very dicey, precarious situation. This is how they are trained to breathe. Inhale to a count of 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4, and repeat 6 rounds. Just as simple as that. 4, 7, and 8 manages anxiety and relaxes. Take in a breath for 4. Close your mouth. Take in a breath and exhale through your mouth with a whoosh sound. Close your mouth and inhale quietly through your nose to a count of 4. Hold for 7 and then you whoosh, coming out with a 7. So can you see your 4? You've got inhale is 4. Your 7 and 8 is holding and exhaling. You repeat that for 4 breaths. Now, to reduce your stress and calm your nervous system, this, they said, is the most, I'll read it, it says here, the physiological sigh is the fastest way to bring down stress levels, and it only takes 2 to 3 breaths. Inhale, and you inhale nearly full, but add an extra small inhale. Then exhale through your mouth slowly, making a sighing sound. This is the single most powerful way to rapidly lower stress that science has discovered. And if you have a trouble falling asleep or awakening from sleep, try to do 10 to 15 of these breaths to calm your brain. So you're breathing in. So you're breathing in. So you've nearly got the full breath in, then an extra little bit inhale on top of that. Now this is a great one. Remember I talked to you about nitric oxide? Do you know the way to increase your nitric oxide in your body by 15 times is to hum? Hum. So I hum quite a bit. Yeah, we just hum whatever you want to hum. No, I'm not talking about I hum a tune. You breathe in. Then you breathe in and you go through. I hum songs that I like, hymns. I do lots of those sort of things. That's how I'm here. And you can just hum. 15-fold, it will increase your nitric oxide. Practice at least 5 minutes a day. So hum whatever you want to do. And look, I always say, I don't care what you sound like.
Is singing different?
Yes, you've got to hum because you've got to keep your mouth shut. Your mother used to do lots of humming, yeah. But remember, you've just got to keep your mouth shut, hum for at least 5 minutes a day. And it's ideal. Humming releases nitric oxide in the nasal passages 15-fold. And remember, I was just going to say, doesn't matter what you sound like, because I always say that God created the crow. He created the canary, but he also created the crow, didn't he? And you can't tell me that to your eyes, the crow sounds nowhere nice as the canary sounds. But guess what? That's what all they've got. One of God's creatures. Yes, that's right. So God created them both. Okay, now 1 minute 3 times a daily, five in, 1 minute 6 breaths, 5 in, 5 out. 5 in, 5 out. 5 seconds I'm talking about. Okay, you can do it once. They even said just by doing a minute 3 times a day will help you. And don't minimise and think that this is crazy, because I tell you what, even doing a small amount will help. And it's ideal is that, most people think, oh yes, I'd like to do that, but you just forget. You just get through it. And that's why I'm going to share with you. I prefer to do it while I'm exercising. Okay, now another one, 3, 4, 5, manages anxiety and stress. So you breathe in for 3 seconds, hold for 4, breathe out for 5. And you repeat for 5 minutes, 5 cycles per minute. Once again, you've got your 5 cycles a minute. 5 or 6 cycles is ideal when you're doing exercise. You're slowing everything down. Now, this is an ideal one too. Walking breath hold exercises. To me, this makes more logic sense than all the others. Exhale and hold. Count how many paces before you need to breathe. Breathe until you return to normal and you repeat it. So, and you don't do it while you're swimming. We just have to make sure people don't. Because, some people, they say, could even faint when they're doing it. We wouldn't want anyone to faint while they're doing it in the water, while you're in water. So you walk, and so you exhale, and you hold your breath. You don't have to pinch your nose, but if it's easy to pinch your nose, and do how many steps can you go? Then breathe in, and then repeat it again. So, now, the next one is a completely different one. It's intermittent hypoxic training. Now, this is completely different because this is a stress that stimulates your body to make it more resistant to disease. And this has been used for many decades in Russia. They have got loads and loads and loads of data from Russia because they've used this extensively for chronic lung disease, bronchial asthma, hypertension, diabetes, Parkinson's, emotional disorders, radiation toxicity, and more. It's a powerful way to produce more energy, anti-aging treatment, and longevity promoting stem cell tissue repairs. Now, I bought this book here. I've got this book by Wim Hof. Now, some of you may have ever heard of him, but some may not. And I'll tell you who he is. He's a Dutchman. And he has developed a breathing method that is completely opposite to what I've just taught you about. His breathing method, he hyperventilates. And what he's done, he hyperventilates, he breathes in, and sometimes he breathes in through his mouth as well, and out. In and out, like this, quite rapidly. Maybe a second in, a second out, a second in, a second out. So it's quite rapid. He breathes but he is known as what you call the Iceman. He's Wim Hof. He has developed this so dramatically that plus in his method he uses cold water and his mind. He concentrates and he tells himself what he's going to. And through this, he has held many different records. He has climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in his shorts. He has run half a marathon above the Arctic Circle on his bare feet. I think he even did a marathon through the desert without drinking water. He's just amazing. But he stood in a container filled with ice cubes for more than 112 minutes, and nobody else could ever get near it except people who've done his method. And he challenges people to try it. And so many people have done it. And as I said, it seems an absolute contradiction to what I've told you about these other methods, this Batiko method and these shallow breath methods. Completely a contradiction. And what he says, and I've seen a YouTube clip of them all, they're saying, you know what, it's good to do his breath, but you're only going, if you're going to do it, maximum amount of time you would take is lucky to be 10 minutes to 20 minutes a day. And then for the rest, for the other 23 and a half hours a day, you breathe the other way. So this is only short term. It's putting your body under stress, and so then your body will actually change, and it does lots of amazing things, and it gives you, I've got the things what it does in a moment. Okay, so what about people who do deep breathing, hyperventilating through their mouths? He answers short-term overbreathing doesn't do harm to anyone, but it's how you're breathing for the rest of the day. Now, this is the Wim Hof technique, and it's also called Tumo. It actually teaches, and he actually can handle cold. Amazingly, he just learns to handle. He doesn't need heating. He doesn't need anything. He can handle the cold. He's just absolutely amazing. But you have to do it while you're seated or lying down, because when you do it, you'll get very dizzy. So you're seated. You take 30 to 40 full conscious breaths, and you breathe forcefully into the belly and chest and to the using your diaphragm, and let it go without any force. On your final exhale, let the air out and hold it as long as you can without discomfort. You listen to your body and you don't force it. When you feel the urge to breathe again, take a deep breath in and hold it for 10 seconds, then release and relax. And then you repeat that 2 or 3 times. Now, if you'd asked me how long can you hold your breath for, look, I don't know. I was very weak when I was a younger person. I couldn't hold my breath very long. But since I've done this, I cannot believe it. I could not believe how long I held my breath for. I've got up to 2.5 minutes that I've held my breath for. And that's not at all me, can I tell you? That is so not Kay. I can't hold my breath at all like that. But yet, because you've super oxygenated your body and it's ready, it can hold. This is what deep sea divers use to go down, and they don't have to come up for air all the time. A lot of the people in here can hold their breath for 4 minutes. That's normal. Some people you start off. I mean, when I started off, I think I was only a minute and something, but I've increased it to 2.5 minutes, and I couldn't believe it. Now that, for me, is somewhat incredible. But that is called Wim Hof technique. And I don't do that all the time. I'm trying to breathe quietly, and I'm taping my mouth shut at night, so that's helping. And I know that it's predominantly the night time that's really important, plus during the day when you think of it, but in your night time, because that's, all those hours as you're sleeping. And if you're sleeping with your mouth open, you're not getting all the benefits, like as I said. Plus, the Wim Hof method is the way to get warm. And he's got one here. He's got an exercise here, how to get warm. Now, this is a technique that says it increases immunity, you have better sleep, increased energy, decreases stress level, heightened focus and determination, increases willpower, banishes early morning tiredness. The real hangover cure, can you believe that? Heals faster, it removes oxygen deficit and oxygen debt. Warm yourself up, cool yourself down, improves your athletic performance, proactively flight of off basic sickness. By the way, too, they injected him with some E. coli, and he just told himself he wasn't going to get sick, and he didn't. I mean, there's more to it than there, and I'm not at all getting into any of that mystical sort of new agey sort of stuff. I'm just keeping it as a breathing exercise, and fine. Okay, develop greater patience, improve your ability to float, short circuits anger, rage and frustration, helps your children buffer the effects of technology, recover from jet lag quickly, ulcerative colitis, multiple sclerosis, breast cancer, bipolar. I'm amazed. You read the testimonials in here, you'll find people, bipolar. Some people, they've been depressed for years and years and years, and they've got their life back. I'm just amazed at how just a simple breathing technique can help people and change them. But remember, as I said, there are countless ways to breathe. You can relax. There's different breathing methods to study or concentrate. There's a different breathing methods to warm up. So you can choose the breathing method that you really want to learn. So in summary, there's certainly a lot of new things that we can learn. Try a different breathing technique. Okay, so that brings us to our end. I wanted to share with you this. Remember, the first Sunday of next month, we're going to have another cooking class here. So write it down. It will be on. We do have a slight charge because there is food involved, but you're welcome. You'll get a very, very good feed. I can assure you that. You get well and truly your money's value. And if you want to check anything out, I've got those. I'll just put those websites up for you, because some of you may not remember this. You want to go back over it. It will be on the website. You will be away. Okay. Any questions from today's talk about? Just hold on. We'll need a microphone. We got it ready there. Yeah, but it's to go on the recording. Just hold on. So I hope you learned something new. The importance of nasal breathing. Very important. Yeah, just so that it goes on the recording. We've been asked to keep it because people who watch it online don't get the questions. Thank you.
I have a ridiculous problem with taping my mouth.
Yep.
I have tried the recommended brands. I've tried all sorts of low-tack kind of tapes, and my skin just reacts so badly, I can't do it. And I've tried, lip balms and the whole works. Do you have any other alternative method?
Is it your skin even on your skin, or just your lips?
It's my lips and the surrounding area.
Okay, there are things they call snoring straps. They come in under your chin like that. Do you know, where do you get them from?
Yeah, you can get them from
Wodonga Sleep Clinic.
Oh, excellent. All right.
Okay, I would suggest a snoring strap. I can understand because my lips are sensitive. The rest of my skin is all right, but not my lips. They're very sensitive.
Thank you.
Okay, there's a question over there.
I might have missed something at the start, but was there something to do with eczema? Can breathing assist eczema at all?
Okay, yes, it does. Now, yes, it does help. This is the Batico method of breathing. I remember the beginning of March, I met a lady from Parkes, and she's told me that she learned the Batico method of breathing, and she said when she did it, they had classes, they had somebody, they went to classes, and she taught her, I think it was a daughter who was about I think she said she was around about 10 or something. She taught, and she said that daughter was cured of eczema just by learning to breathe correctly through her nose.
So is that listed in your newsletter?
Sorry?
Is that method in your newsletter?
No, that's not.
So I can
No,
look
that
up.
can I suggest, if you want to do something, you really need to do some education. Get yourself a book. This one here, this book does more on the Batico method, that particular one.
What's the name of that one?
That's on the Oxygen Advantage by Patrick McKeon. But this one here, and I know I've got Lorraine, you've enjoyed this, haven't you? Yeah, you've enjoyed it, yeah. It opens up your mind, because all of a sudden you realise we've missed something very important. Very important. Just hold on, another
I
question.
just had one more. Was there something to do with weight loss?
Yes, there's another one. Yes, the breathing exercise.
Is that the Batico method, or is that a different method for weight loss?
No, it wasn't Batico method, but it's similar. The Batico method and the other one is still shallow breathing. It's just, but rhythmic, slow, and making sure your abdomen, but not huge breaths in, like as far as volume in. At the beginning, we talked about people are taking too much air into their lungs. That's their problem.
I have a question. People with broken noses, I've had a broken nose, and I know someone that cannot breathe through their nose at all because of the cartilage is damaged in the nose. How does that work?
I really can't help you there. I don't know, but I do know they said that the more you use your nose, the more it will clear up. They said there's people who have had a lot of nasal operations, their health has gone downhill. They said everyone who has a nose operation, down the track, they will still have to have it again. It is not a permanent cure. Yes?
Just a comment.
Just hold on.
Just a comment. I was a maternal nurse, and we had men come in from overseas and shut the babies' mouths when they were born.
There you go. So people from overseas knew. Yeah. Yeah.
As someone who is trying to reduce asthma through breathing,
Yeah.
Do you happen to know from your research the best way to deal with an asthma attack in terms of breathing?
I think you'll find the answer is in here.
Which one's that?
This is Patrick McKeon.
Thank you.
Okay. Or go online, look up, there is so much. You know, it's like when you do some research on your computer and that side panel comes up. I've just got so many breathing experts, so many people coming up on my side panel on the computer that I could click on any one of them. They're all telling the same thing to get, but Batico method is the method that you need to do. And I believe it totally works, there's no doubt, but you have to follow it through. Any other questions?
How do you spell Batico?
Buteyko. Right? I think so. B-U-T. Batico. I think he's passed away since, but Patrick McKeon spent time with him. He was still alive, and he went to Russia and he learned how to breathe and teach. And the Oxygen Advantage is a website. You go on there, you will find that he has class, like online classes that can teach you how to do it. I think you would find that for asthma, there's one there for asthma. I think you might have to pay for it, but I think you'd have to pay for it anywhere you go. Yeah. But I think that's where the best place for you to do it would be. Any more questions? So thank you for coming, and hopefully we'll see you then next month. I'm not having a Tuesday morning one because the last Tuesday in the month happens to be Anzac Day, and I've just thought I'll just skip that one because it's so hard when people, because Anzac Day, people just want a day off and to do nothing. Okay, so we will just wait until the first Sunday of the month. And we have got a promise for you girls who are wanting Ralph's cream recipe. He said he will give it to us. See, now we've got it on tape, Ralph. You can't not do it. And he's also offered to do some trifle too. Yeah, so healthy trifle. Healthy trifle.
It's 7th of May in the morning.
No, 7th of May in the afternoon. It's an afternoon. We have the afternoon because there's a different denomination comes in and uses the church in the morning. So we just got the hall for the afternoon. Okay, so thank you very much. And it's been nice to see you again, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.
Extremely helpful. Thank you.
Good. Okay, I'm glad you came.
I'm so glad I did. Thank you.
Okay. So do you want to stay back on the mailing?